Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Bob. You know, I called her, Natalie, last week, and we had another song in that slot, and it was a good one, too. And I asked her if she would be so kind as to shift and sing the Lord's Prayer, because we're going to talk a little bit about the Master Teacher today, and I thought it'd be appropriate because we're going to be talking about the Sermon on the Mount of the Beatitudes. We're in a 5-week series on this mountaintop experiences. This is week 4, and if you see me smiling more today, because I'm kind of out of the Old Testament into the New. And I live and breathe and love the Bible, but I really, say it with me, really like the Sermon on the Mount. If there's anything that I would encourage you, if you've not picked up the Bible, and I would encourage you, if you want to start somewhere, you can start at the beginning if you like. In the beginning, I mean, that's great. But if you just, go to the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, and 7 is the most complete. And this is the real stuff. This is like, you study the Sermon on the Mount, and sometimes we get caught up in the renditions of something, like the movies of it. It starts off saying, and Jesus saw the crowds, and then in the movie you see him, and then he went up to the mountain, and the disciples followed, and there's this packed mountain with all these people, and he's speaking, and he begins to speak, blessed are they, and you know how it goes. And just doing a little research on it, kind of curious about it, because when I was reading the Sermon on the Mount, I remember for the first time, there were things in there that I wish weren't in there. I could say, well, I could do that one. Okay, I could do that one. It's like, oh, no way I could do that, because this is the real deal, folks. So my thinking on this. My intuitive nature on this is, here's how it probably showed up. And Jesus saw the multitude and left the multitude and went up into the mountain to be in a higher state of consciousness and just to be in that presence and the power of God. And it would be natural for his disciples to come and then follow and be at his feet and to listen as he began to speak. So the Sermon on the Mount is really, and the writers of Matthew, and probably the writer of Luke also, was not about enrolling people into the teachings of Jesus. It was really to the Hebrews, to the Jews that were already followers of Jesus. Do you see the difference? This was not a place for beginners. This was a place for those people that were 100% committed to the transformation of their lives and to bringing a transformation onto this planet. This is the hard stuff. This is the meat of Christianity. This is like, and so for those of you that maybe aren't there, this is a great time for you to nap. So just be okay. I won't care if you just take a little nap during the rest of this sermon, because I'm going to share with you the real stuff. This is the stuff that all of us, if you're here, most likely your soul wants to get on board with this teaching. You want to get up to a higher state of consciousness. You want to get to the place where Jesus is and was. This is a being who, I did some research on this too. Where was Jesus from 12? Where was Jesus from 12 to 30? Where were the lost years? What happened? Why was there no recording of his life that brought him to the place where he was at an age and a maturity, spiritually maturity, to begin this work, his ministry? Where was all that? If you read on it, you'll hear about what happened as far as how they removed things and got rid of things so the church could take control. And there's a long story about that. But most scholars believe that Jesus was in India. And the wise men were actually, a majority of them were from India. And so the idea was that Jesus was fully aware of the practice of going deeper, and the practice of practicing spiritual principles, and the practice of being in the silence, and the relationship of getting really deep and where he could come to that place of saying that the Father and I are one. God, it gives me goosebumps. The Father and I are one. Speak it with me together. The Father and I are one. And if it doesn't give you that tingly feeling, you haven't got it yet. Together, the Father and I are one. Everything that God is available to you. You're a radiant being, a child of God. And so Jesus gathers he picked his 12. And you know, how many of you have ever been in a multi-level marketing plan before? Any old Amway distributors out there besides myself? The old days was hard work. You had to store all the product. Now it's all done online. It's a walk in the park. But I was almost a direct. I was, big shot. Thought I was a big shot, and it's a multi-level marketing plan. And here's what they teach you, or any businesses will teach you. When you're looking to incorporate to grow your business, the two things you do, you have to go wide and look at all people. And you have to measure them and check them out. And then what you do is then when you find your 12, if you will, or your 10, then you go deep with those 10. And you develop them and you work with them as Jesus did the disciples, teaching them what he knew from the Father. And so, I've always thought that Jesus was a multi-level marketing plan guy, because think about it. He took 12 people, and this was his plan. I'm going to teach Peter and Paul, and I'm going to teach, all the other disciples. And what they're going to do, these disciples, they're going to teach them all to do what he was doing. And then they would go out and get their 12, and then they'll see how it works? It's a multi-level marketing plan. And that's what he knew he was leaving, so he had to get these guys on board. This is the people he was talking to. These are the people he was talking to on the Sermon on the Mount. This was not the general public. He wasn't trying to enroll more people. He'd already gone wide. Now he was going deep. Make sense? A little boy, 4 or 5-year-old Bobby, was excited to be spending the night and the weekend with his grandmother. And I've often said if I could have had my grandkids first, it would sure been nicer. Less pain and suffering. So Bobby is all excited to go to Grandma's house, and Grandma's all excited because Bobby's coming, and Grandma planned to take him to the park on Saturday. Weather was looking great. Went to bed, got up the next morning, and the snow had covered the ground. And do you know that first snow in the morning where nobody's driven on it? It's just, and the sun's hitting, everybody's nodding, and the sparkles come off it. It is just a picture of beauty. And so the grandma brought Bobby to the window and said, look what God has painted, and he's painted it just for you. And there's that little moment between the grandchild and grandma, and he said, yeah, Grandma, and he painted it with his left hand. And she goes, Bobby, why do you say that he painted it with his left hand? Because I went to Sunday school last week, and it said in Sunday school that Jesus sits on God's right hand. So there's no way that he could have painted that picture with his right hand, because after all, in his mind, Jesus is sitting on the hand of God. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool, that close. That, if Jesus is sitting on the right hand of God, then Jesus becomes the hand of God. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm ready to sit on the right hand of God, but I'd be up for sitting on the left hand. Wouldn't you? Would you not be up to healing, transforming, revitalizing lives? Would you not like to walk into a crowd and have a conversation with someone, and while you're just standing there, the person who happened to brush your garment was healed from a disease? Would you not like to take people that can't see anymore and just touch them and they can get their vision back? Would you not like to have to worry about getting to Lazarus' tomb because you knew that by the time you got there it would be okay because you could bring him back from the dead? Wouldn't you not like to walk on a little water that you can do it in Minneapolis, but you got to go up in February, January, because the water's frozen. But try it in spring, not so much. But see, here's the deal. Jesus never fretted through any of that because he already knew. He knew what he was about to teach and wanted the disciples to know when he was asking them to step it up. When Jesus came walking on the water, and here's the big moment, and it's in your life too. If that be thee, call on me. Jesus didn't say, Peter, get out of the boat and start walking, he was ready. See it? So in this moment, Jesus is wanting his disciples to get ready, because I want to teach you a few things. And the Beatitudes starts out with the Sermon on the Mount, in the sense of the Sermon on the Mount starts off with the Beatitudes, and you read the Beatitudes. And so in the Jesus Seminar, which is where all the scholarly people get together and try to determine in reality what was the red letter words of Jesus versus the black letter words, they all agreed that there were really only 3 Beatitudes that Jesus would have spoken to the disciples. And if you read Matthew, you'll see the word is blessed. If you read the Hebrew understanding, it'll say happy, and I like either one of them. But if you read the Jesus Seminar, what it says is congratulations. I like that too. Congratulations. Congratulations to the poor in spirit. Heaven's domain belongs to them. Congratulations. Number 2, congratulations to those who grieve, for they will be consoled. Number 3, congratulations for those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they shall be fulfilled. It's congratulations. You've reached this place because the goodness of God is going to be moving in and through your life. And then he goes on to talk about this concept of the salt and the light of the world. He said, you are the salt of the earth. And he's asking you not to lose your flavor. And what that means is that you are you and created just like you, perfect and whole in every way. I'm me because I have a certain flavor that only I can exhibit and contribute to this planet. So never lose sight of yourself. Don't try to be like somebody else. If God wanted you to be like them, you would have been like them. You can model yourself after certain people, but God wants you to have a unique flavor, and you are the salt of the earth. He said that you are the light of the world. And don't hide your light under a bushel, but do what? Let it shine. He goes on to also he mentions in Scripture that he was the light of the world. Wait a minute, I thought I was. Get it? We're all the light of the world. And in the Lord's Prayer that you sang that touched our hearts, it starts out with our Father. The 2 most powerful words joined together that you've ever will hear. Because what it says is what? Our God. One God. Your God is my God. Our God means that we're all in this spiritual family together. It really doesn't matter what path you choose. There are many paths. Have you figured that out yet? There's many paths to God. There's many paths, but only one God. So you are the salt, uniqueness. You are the light of the world. Speaks to us about the law. Talks about how he came to fulfill the law, not to abolish the law. Speaks to them about anger and revenge. For we say, this revenge, this eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. By golly, they did it to me. I'm going to do it to them. We've been doing that for eons. For eons. And if we continue to do that, we have a lot of blind people and a lot of toothless people. It's just, but he said, no. And this is the one, when I read it the first time, I said, darn, I wish he wouldn't have put that one in there. This one here. It's been told that you shall love your neighbor, but I say to you to love your enemy. Jeez, man. How many of you have struggled with that? You don't have to raise your hand. A very wise man told me one time, he said, if you're struggling with any one person or a situation, take it into prayer. Call Silent Unity, drop it in the Silent Unity prayer box, and release it. And, it worked. Because then what I realized is that, how many of you have ever made really, really interesting mistakes in your life? Call them mistakes. When I take it all back to myself, I realize that I did those things because I didn't know any better, consciously. Now I know better, I do better. So how you can begin to love your enemies is because they do that only because they know no better. You see how it works? But when you can own that for yourself, that you made mistakes also in the past. People are doing the best that they can with the situation that has been given them, because this is the high level of consciousness where you can not only love the people who love you back, but to love the people who despise you and revile you and say all kind of things bad about you, especially the things that aren't true, you get to love them anyway. I didn't make any of this up, by the way. These are all red line words. This is Jesus stuff. Be mad at him. Don't be mad at me. I wasn't happy with him either for the longest time. Talks about giving to the needy. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. You know, if you've ever given something to someone, especially what would be considered a large amount of money, a big stretch for you, to write out a check or to give somebody something that you of great value to you. And I will speak for myself, it is sometimes very hard not to take ownership of it. So in other words, just to give it freely with no reward coming back to say, yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, the ego gets built up. So what Jesus is saying, don't give like that. Just give. And know it's the right thing to do, because then when you give, you can give all the credit to the Holy Spirit that's within you and charging you. Talks about money and possessions, and don't store up treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, but store all your treasures in heaven. That everything that's of value, that's real, that's lasting, is in the unseen world. Paul the Apostle, he had huge insights to this. Is what is real is the unseen, because everything that's physical will pass away. You know, I turned 66 in July, and I become aware that, you know, there's a good chance in about 30 years I might pass away. And it was like, I bought a house, right? And you're signing all the documents, and we were looking for the lowest payment possible. We knew we wouldn't have the mortgage for 30 years, but she said, now this is when the mortgage comes due. And I'm going, 96 years old. I might make it. Might be good, could be good. But the reality is what you get in touch with when you get to be a certain age is you realize that all the physical is just an expression of something. That what's real is the unseen. So, you know, and Jesus talks also in this thing about the narrow gate and in the Sermon on the Mount, is that, you know, most people, it's a highway, it's a wide way, it's a wide gate, but the spiritual gate is very narrow. And you have to really want to go through it. Because the spiritual gate isn't always an easy gate. A lot of bumps and bruises, but it's a worthwhile journey. He ends the Sermon on the Mount with the idea of building a solid foundation. Building a solid foundation. In other words, the wise man doesn't build on the sand, he builds on the rock. And then this would be a symbol of the rock, would be of God, and the wise man would be of Jesus, if you looked at it metaphysically. And then, of course, it would be, for you, it would be the wise man would be, person would be you, and rock would be Jesus. So the idea that, what I found is that everybody on this planet, including Jesus, my guess is he spent years of study in India preparing himself. And it's the saying where the student becomes the master. And so when the time was right for him, he entered his ministry. He entered his ministry with the place of having to be tempted in the wilderness. He entered this ministry by being baptized by John the Baptist, because he loved John. They were cousins. He loved him. And then when he was, you know, this is my beloved son and I'm well pleased, when he had his consciousness in place, he began his worldwide movement, which is a transformation of planet Earth. But during that period of time, he had coaches. We need coaches. Some of the people we lean to are physical people on the planet. Some people have transcended. Some people use Jesus Christ himself. I personally use Jesus as my personal way shower and my personal trainer and coach. And I do. I go out to the pool when I'm at the pool floating in my little, you know the floaties that you're half in the water and half out? God, I love those. 101 degrees, who can be out here? But down in the pool, it's sweet. Lots of suntan lotion. Get all covered up, get a little hat on and glasses. And I float in the pool, and I imagine and I call forth the presence of the master teacher to float in one right beside me. And I ask him questions about what do you think? And we have a great conversation. And usually before I even get the question out of my mouth, I know the right thing to do already. But you need coaches. Some of those coaches are past, and some of those coaches are here present. I'm going to share with you a quick story because it'll make my point. My brother, who goes by the same name as me, people say, why would his mother name both their sons Rob Robinson? because it's a last name tag. Rob Robinson, the other Rob Robinson's my brother, my older brother of 2 years, who is he's the shuffleboard man in the United States and in the world in which we live. He plays. Have you ever played shuffleboard? It's on a board ship. You've seen it? Well, when I retired 4 years ago to go to Phoenix, Arizona, I played shuffleboard because I had to play shuffleboard because he's my older brother and he likes to tell me what to do. And usually I follow. So I played shuffleboard in tournaments. I got pretty good at it. My dad was the best shuffleboard player on the planet before he passed. And my brother wanted to follow in his footsteps. There is a pin that all shuffleboard players go after. It's a national pin. There's one given out for the singles, one for the doubles. You want that pin. That's your whole life is about getting that pin. His whole life is about getting that pin. He wants that pin. Finally, as he gets down to elimination, he's ready to play his final game of shuffleboard, and he's playing against his best friend, Chuck. And he's going to shoot. Now, in the game of shuffleboard, you want to have the last disc, which is the yellow disc. My brother has one more shot in the entire game, and he's down 3 points. He needs an 8 to win. And he stands out there, and he positions himself to shoot. And he steps back, he puts his head in this position, sets his stick aside and said, "Dad," and he's talking not to God, but to my dad, "I need to be coached here. I really want this pin. Coach me. Let me work through me. Let me have this pin." So he did a little prayer, and he shot the disc down. He needed an 8 to win. He missed the 8. But accidentally, because he missed the 8, he knocked Chuck's disc into a kitchen, which is a -10, which gives you 10 down, puts my brother 3 up. And he wins. Big, "Thanks, Dad." Chuck says, "Wait a minute. The rules are no coaching during the game." He calls over the head ref. Head ref comes over. So what seems to be the problem? And he's giving my brother a hard time. They're best friends. He said he was getting coached by his dad. He says, "Who? Rob?" My dad's Rob too. He said, so Rob was being coached by Rob, but I thought Rob was dead. He is dead, but he was coaching. He was asking for support, and they had this big laugh. And it was a lot of fun. But I got it, because in that moment, that's exactly what my brother was doing. Is exactly what he was doing. He was calling upon the wisdom of the ages and the wisdom of my father before he made that shot. It's called coaching. And in the game of shuffleboard, you can't be coached while you're playing. Before and after, all you want. My point in telling you this is that if you're struggling, even Jesus had coaches. When he was coached by those people, those wise people in India, and who do you think coached him all the way through his life here on earth? Was God himself. So turn yourself over to the higher power. Turn yourself over to someone who's doing something that you're thinking you might want to do, and ask for help. We came to planet Earth because it's a great place to learn. Be the type of spiritual student that Jesus wants you to be. Be the type of spiritual student that the Christ within you wants you to be. Step up to the plate and be the very best me or you that you can be. And that's the truth, so help me God. God bless you. Thank you for being here today.